where were you at when you came to me, and what is the difference when it comes to your
Hmm.
storytelling?
Oh, yes, I remember the time, right? Like it was a session, and I just joined like 20 minutes before. And I was giving interviews and I was not being able to crack them, and I didn't know, I was totally lost, what was not working right for me. And and I just, came to that session and I heard your story, and somehow I felt so connected with you, right? I mean, I just felt that, she's a person who can help me. I mean, I didn't care that, I didn't know you well, or, I just attended very small, brief part of the session or whatever, I just thought, no, she is the one. I think it was just instant connection. And I think the way you narrated your story, right? I think it just brought so much conviction in me that, I can also do something right, with the way things were going. And it's such a small thing. It's like I'm just not getting a job, right? I mean, you've traveled continents, so then, I reached out to you, and, then you first said that, okay, just go through these videos. And then somehow when I saw your video, and I was like, no, I'm going to just take her help. And I think I need that help, because sometimes you look at it with so many questions when you're facing so much of failure in life. You start doubting yourself, you start doubting your capabilities, and everything, the way you look at yourself also changes, right? You just look at the negative points. And I think I was at that stage in my career when I met you. uh, and yeah.
That's awesome. So, what do you feel I helped you with the most? Because you are a leader, like
Mhm.
you speak
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
get in front of other executives.
Right.
What do you think was missing for you that I was able to help you with?
Okay, so one very specific thing that I will first say with regards to the interview process, which I was not being able to crack. Uh, See, I had been very successful in getting jobs purely on my merit and my academics and the work I had done. But then, like you very rightly said, now I was a leader. And the way I approached some of these conversations was like a middle management person, right? I would say, okay, these are the tasks that I did. I did not speak like a leader. Okay, I just spoke about, I realized like, okay, I would just say, okay, I worked upon this is what I've executed. So they were tasks, and then when I spoke to you and we had a couple of sessions, and that's when I realized, it was like the penny dropped. It's like, no, I have to talk like a leader. And definitely I have done that work. But the way I positioned myself was completely, but somebody who was just managing some stuff, and she's taking orders and she's executing. And I think one very important thing about women leaders is also that, as qualified women, we don't label ourselves as leaders. We think it's being trying to be humble or nice or acceptable or amicable. We just don't acknowledge ourselves as leaders. And I think the biggest thing that I think I got from the initial few conversations, I think it's the first and the second conversation itself, that, oh, this is how I am. And of course, I have done work in strategy, people management, and some of these things I never spoke, in any
Mhm.
of my conversations. So yeah, that just, my perspective completely changed after our initial conversations itself. Yeah.
That makes sense. So you think like it's when we talk about ourselves and try to sell ourselves that as leaders that it ends up being a lot more difficult than when you're, let's say, doing a strategy presentation or any of that.
Right, right. And another thing was, I think, yeah, which I missed saying is that, and which was the first thing you corrected, like I would blabber on, right? Because I was so lost, I have done so many things. And when someone would ask, I would say, Acha, I've done this, I've done that. And I would talk about 10 different things without any outcome. And the whole, the SOAR framework, right, which you explained to me, and which is what we worked upon. I mean, that really helped me become very brief and concise. I think I used to just talk too much too, right? Like, I mean, it was like, it's like a buffet, right? Like, that was the other thing you mentioned, right? Like, I would talk about everything: Chinese, Italian, Indian, everything, you have. And I think I'm sure the person would be completely lost who was talking to me. So that was another thing that I definitely gained from those interactions. Yes.
Awesome. What were some of the exercises that you found helpful that improved your communication, that helped you, show up with confidence when you were speaking, in front of the decision makers?
Mhm. Right. Okay, so I think the first thing, I think all the exercises, right? I think the first exercise, I forgot what was it called.
The chunks of
The
10?
yes, chunks of 10. Actually, the moment I did that, right, because I went back to my childhood, and that was such an important thing. And I don't think any of the career, like coach, they really talk about that because childhood is when you are completely, you're fresh, right? Like you're not molded by the world or molded by whatever the education system or your colleagues, anything. So when I just went back and when I started writing things about myself, and I realized what I truly enjoy, that was again very important. It also made me think that now I want to create an impact. So the chunks, I'll just start with the chunks of 10. Yeah. So when I did that exercise, right, chunks of 10, that was the first time I realized that, oh, it's also about what you truly love. And at a certain stature in your career, right? Like when you've achieved certain things, and then the next most important thing for you as a leader is creating an impact. And it made me realize that, okay, what are my strengths? What is it that I want to pursue in my life? And that gave me a lot of clarity. And I think the moment I had that clarity, then it becomes very easier for you also as a leader to communicate that to anybody. It will just not be then it doesn't get limited to the interviews.